coming to you by way of Vaughan Therapeutic Systems. Vaughan Therapeutic Systems is an agency designed to provide clinical consultation, counseling, and also supervision and training to social workers and therapists. We have been in operation for the last 11 years. We first opened our doors in December of 2009. And so I have been definitely awarded, and I use the word awarded, the opportunity to serve in the journey of so many people. And so, Vaughan Therapeutic Systems, we provide clinical consultation. And what that means is that, we do a lot of consultation with individuals and as well as organizations. The consultation typically surrounds opening up a clinical practice. We do a lot of training in the areas of organizational development and also ethics and clinical practice. And so my counseling is working with individuals, families, as well as groups. So I've been doing that since 2009, have a solo practice. I do not have other practitioners that work alongside of me. So I originally got into the whole clinical practice field, of course, by way of my profession. I am a social worker. I graduated from Morgan State University as well as University of Maryland School of Social Work. So I've been in the field for about 25 years, and maybe the first maybe 10 years or so into my career, I worked in different areas. In substance abuse, I worked in the hospital setting, I worked in working with mental health and in different areas within social work. And then I started helping people to develop programs and trainings. I started providing clinical services under small practices within the Baltimore City setting. And I always like to tell this story because when I first started working in other people, in other business owners' clinical practices, I was always looked upon to run their practice, or, it got to the point where I would provide clinical services, and then people would say, to me, and I say people because there were different agencies, they would say, Ebony, I want you to run the clinical department, or I want you to supervise other clinicians. And so I did that for a little bit. And then, something hit me like, what are you doing this for other people when you can be doing this for yourself? What's that about? And so from that point, I did my research to determine what it was that I needed to do what they were doing. And as a result, here is Vaughan Therapeutic Systems. And so I started Vaughan Therapeutic Systems as I stated, in 2009. But here's the funny thing about that. I didn't start focusing on my practice in 2009. So the short end of my story is, although I started the practice, became credentialed, received all of what I needed to start it, I still was in my employee mindset. And so what that means is that I was growing in the agencies that I was employed in. So I'm climbing the ladder and becoming supervisor and becoming, director. So I'm going from mid-level, to, of course, executive level in terms of being an administrator in my field. And so I'm thinking, yeah, let me do this. And so I hit that one place in 2013, and here I am, again, I started my practice in 2009. Okay. So I had everything I needed. I was dibbling and dabbling in it in a little bit, for a little bit, maybe a couple of clients, and I would do a training now and every now and then. But my focus was growing and building someone else's vision. Okay. 2009, 2013. The light bulb went off in 2012, and that light bulb was like, Ebony, what are you doing? You have a business that you're not even touching. What's going on? You're doing 60 and 80 hours a week in their on their vineyard, building their dream, but yet you're doing nothing with something that you started in 2009. And so fast forward to 2013, and I just got to a point, a very difficult place, emotionally and mentally, where I just became so overwhelmed, exhausted, and frustrated. And I went into burnout mode. And that revelation that I received from that season in my life was that, guess what? I'm working and I'm building and I'm, driving my body into the ground for other people, but yet I have this business that I haven't even touched or even begin to build. And so as a result of that, I took myself out of this whole administrative and ladder, as it relates to building. And I decided to put all of my focus on building the vision that I believe God has given me. And so that is my story in terms of how I really started focusing on building my vision and my dream. Now, I do have to say that I do still work for someone. I do still, I am employed. I do also teach on a college level. So there are still some things that I am doing, but I believe that that is a part of the plan of God for my life. But I also said in that story that I would never work harder for anybody else other than myself. And so that brought me, to this time in my life. And so, again, Vaughan Therapeutic Systems, we have been going strong. We've opened 2009, but we've been growing strong since 2013. In terms of funding, when it comes to starting a clinical practice, it's really about getting credentialed. It's really about being able to align yourself with insurance companies, and you create your own price. You create your own funding in terms of what you charge and what your fees are like. So that is basically how I started. I started by getting credentialed. I started by designing a plan and a fee schedule which would be associated with my services, whether consultation, whether individual and family or couples counseling, or whether training. And so I developed a fee schedule with that. And then I also began to write. I began to write trainings and work with individuals to help them start their process. I think I am, one of the things that I can say about being an entrepreneur is that I truly believe that there is a creative drive in me that seeks to always learn and to grow and to become a resource to those that I work with. And so consultation was my baby, because all of the information and all of the time and research that I put into building my business, it's something that I like to pour into other people with. And also, part of that consultation piece comes with helping other business owners formulate processes and practices to put in place to run their agencies effectively. One of the things about growing in the growing up in human services organizations, you learn a lot about COMAR, what the state regulations and guidelines are. So part of my practice also helps people to ensure that they run quality and effective programs that provide the necessary services. So I think that when you start talking about how to start a business, when you start talking about even getting to the place of implementing an idea, there has to be a commitment to yourself. And I believe that in the beginning stages of my, my practice, part of the mindset that I needed to shift from was really building and putting all of my energy into building someone else's vision, and, really looking at things from a perspective of position and authority, because I think sometimes many of us are entrepreneurs, but we're spending so much time trying to climb somebody else's ladder and prove a point in someone else's vineyard, that we don't recognize the creativity and the ingenuity and innovation that God has created in us to build our own. And so I think that if that is a place of encouragement, that is something that I tell everyone that I speak with. You have to make a commitment to yourself as it relates to building your vision, but you also have to believe in yourself. When I think about some of the wins that I've had as an entrepreneur, it has been such a reward for me to actually build something out of nothing. To me, that is such an amazing feeling. I was thinking the other day about how, when I think about my life, my career, I think about when I graduated from college, the Morgan State University. That was great. That was cool. I felt accomplished when I graduated with my master's degree in social work from University of Maryland. That was great. It was great. And let me just say this: I had both my degrees rolled up on a shelf for about 7, 8 years. Okay. But when I started my first business, my God, that was the epitome of a reward for me. And some people may say, well, why would you say that? And I just think that it's something about creating, it's something about building something that started in you first. I'm a lifelong learner. That's what I do. I'm a teacher as it relates to my spiritual gifts. So learning is second nature to me, but creating was a mindset that I had to develop and create. And there's such a reward in that. And so when I share that experience and my story with other people, it's not to diminish the degrees and the jobs and climbing up in the corporate ladder, because I believe that those things are great and those are very rewarding things that we experience. I also believe that it develops our character and that it creates some goods in us, as it relates to endurance and really having a capacity not only to create but to manage and maintain, because you can create every day, but do you have the tools to have longevity in that thing in which you create? Can you maintain stability as an entrepreneur, where you're not a fly by night company or organization, but where you're building year after year and not going anywhere? And I believe that those are qualities that I developed, and that I nurtured in my corporate experiences, whether it is in my administrative experiences or whether it was in my direct experiences. So I do not take any experience that I've had within, my journey for granted, but I just can't say enough, just that entrepreneurial pursuit. I believe that I was always going to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know when. At the age of 17, I told my mom that I was going to own my own group home. And part of my employment journey, I took on the role of actually running a group home, just because I knew that that was in my pursuits and in, in my journey. And guess what? I got to practice at someone else's expense. And as a result, I said, no way, I'm not doing it. You're not going to tell me how to run my group home. So I decided that that wasn't the journey for me. But my, the point of me saying that is to say that it was through my employment spirit experiences where I was able to gain a greater understanding of whether or not that was something, that I wanted to do. So I believe that was a win, just to be able to practice something that was in my heart to do and to determine whether or not that would go into my pursuits. And so being able to serve hundreds of people in the past, in the past 7 years or so, being able to provide supervision and consultation to help so many other people open their clinical practices, I get excited. When I think about all of the people that I've supervised over the years, and I remember the conversations that I would have with them about how so important it is for them to open up their clinical practices. And some of my former employees and some of those that I've worked with along the way, to see them thriving in their businesses. And I'm not saying I did that or I made that happen, but just to be a part of their journey and to impart, just that passion and desire for entrepreneurship, it's so rewarding for me. It's so rewarding for me when some of my former employees call me and they're like, Ebony, I want to get ready to start my business. Tell me what to do. And I got to calm myself down because, a lot of times I just start flowing with the information and I just start pouring out. And it's like, wait, Ebony, you do have a business, so I try to, keep focus of that. But these are wins for me because I believe that whenever I impart and whenever I, really help someone to build their dreams, I believe that this is just something that I am supposed to do. And so I've been going strong, and then COVID hits. Okay. And so now we are talking about March 13th, 2020. I get a call, and what does it say? We're going to have to shut everything down. And so I actually have a practice, a physical location in the Owens Mills area. And I have been seeing my clients consistently, and my practice was growing, and then COVID hits. And so I had to move myself out of my office, just physically, just my body, nothing else, because I still have it. But I could no longer see anybody. And so for me, this was a challenge because as a clinician, as a touchy feely person, I like to be in the room with people. And I've never really had a line in my practice or even in my places of employment where I had to solely depend on technology. And so it therein was a mindset shift. And I had to really adjust quickly in terms of how do I connect and how do I share the journey of so many others where there is no physical touch and there is no face-to-face communication, because I still want them to know that I'm in this with them. I want them to feel my excitement and my passion in working with them. And I didn't think that that would quite work so well in video, on all of these platforms. And so I really had to shift my focus and really just dig in. And COVID has really opened my eyes up in terms of what I need to do and how much I needed to learn. And so here I go back in school. Now, I'm not in a physical school as it relates to learning, but now there's a totally different skill set that I have to develop as it relates to connecting with people via Zoom or via the other platforms that I had. And so I started developing in that, and of course formed a virtual practice. And to my surprise, my clients has pretty much doubled as it relates to my population that I serve. And I've had the opportunity of doing trainings via Zoom, and just providing consultation and coaching to people. I started thinking about different ways that I could share the information that I've learned. And so I started a coaching series, a group coaching series. So I work with people to kind of help them identify their purpose and really help them to follow their dreams. And I help people to develop virtual practices and really become credentialed as a licensed clinician in the Maryland area. So I started really researching and looking at what do I need to do to not only expand my services, but also pour, what other avenues or options can I open myself up to so that I can bless more people. And so, the group coaching, that was something that I started in July. I set to do it in May. And I had to go through training, and I went through this course development program teaching me how to develop online curriculums. Developing curriculum and writing policies and procedures was part of what I've done for so long in my profession, but I never really knew how to develop an online course, including the engagement and the academic piece. And so that was such a rewarding experience. I did it, guys. I didn't think I could do it, but I did it. And in 2 months, my investment was doubled. And I just thank God for that. And then once I started writing different trainings, and I looked at in my profession, what is it that those that are social workers, those that are licensed people, what would they need in order to remain licensed? And so I started developing trainings and getting them credentialed to provide CEUs. I started working with the state board and researching and exploring what entities can back up my trainings. And as a result, I've developed like 3 trainings, all of them online. I have created webinars. Guys, I'm in a new world, because I would have never thought that I would be creating trainings online. As I've stated before, part of my training practice has always been that. So these are just some wins. And another win for me was I decided in September that the gift to myself would be I would write my first of many books. And I am so excited that I am now a published author. Why? Because I took a chance and I expanded my level of thinking. And I also took a risk as it relates to tapping into the creativity in me that I believe God placed in me. And so I'm still looking for ways to grow as an entrepreneur, but more importantly, to grow as a woman, because I believe that part of this COVID season, although it has not been great for many people, I believe that this COVID experience has given people like me something that is tremendously invaluable, and that is time. If I look back on my life and as it relates to my profession, whenever I had long periods of time, or whenever I had time away from my employment, I've always been able to create away from my employment. And so when I think about that, I think about how, although I have worked throughout my entire process and worked hard throughout this whole COVID experience in my places of employment. What it afforded me was additional time, and that is travel time. Don't have to do that. All these face to face meetings, don't have to do that. And I've taken all of that time that I no longer have to give to someone else, and I have used it for me. And so, my encouragement throughout this process, if you are in that boat where you have now, um, experienced this more time, my desire is to see you use that time to build you as a woman and as an entrepreneur. I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. I hope that it is encouraging and inspiring to you. Again, this is Ebony Vaughan of Vaughan Therapeutic Systems. Have an amazing day. I am Ebony Vaughan, once again from Vaughan Therapeutic Systems. We are located in Owens Mills, Maryland. Our website is vaughantherapeuticsystems.com. I can be reached at 410 382 4536. Thank you so much.